Hey guys, so it's an interesting video on Wild Rift. So today we're back with a Senna updated complete guide. So now, as you guys probably know, Senna is definitely not my most played champion or anywhere close to my top couple of most played champions, obviously because I play ADC, and Senna to a large extent is a lot more closer to a support than an ADC. It's more like a marksman support because farming on Senna is not very viable because I mean you could do that, but it just doesn't really help all that much because Senna, while she is dependent on items, of course, as an ADC, she's also very dependent on getting her stacks. So if you farm, you have a lower chance of getting stacks, and therefore, you know, that's not good for your scaling. Alright, so basically with Senna, there are three ways you can play Senna. First way is to play as a farming ADC, which as I described is not recommended, but you can still do that. The second way is to play her as a support with another ADC. Now, while this is fine, the reason why it's generally not very good is this will lead to an issue where you have two marksmen in the bot lane, and this will affect your team comps. And instead of having like an enchanter support or a tank, you have a Senna, which is not very good for your team comp. So the best way to play Senna is what most people like to call fasting Senna, which basically means you don't take the farm, but the other person in your lane is generally either an APC or a tank support, basically someone who benefits from the farm. Now, reason why tank support benefits from farm is because they can get their items faster, and obviously APCs they need farm to build items and get item breakpoints. So anyways, regardless, today we're going to be playing Fasting Senna, and as usual for our updated complete guides, I'm going to refer you guys to our original Senna complete guide, which I will be putting in the description below, as well as also putting it up in the cards above for you guys to check out. And with that, we can jump straight into the Senna build. So basically, this is the new best default, whatever you want to call it, Senna build, and basically it involves building Divine Sunderer. So I will go through the other kind of builds that is also viable for Senna. She actually has 3 builds. Now I have of course covered that in my latest all builds, runes, and spells guide for all ADCs. Anyways, so first up, you want to start with the Black Cleaver. Now Black Cleaver is a pretty supportive item, really strong at the moment, gives you all the stats that you want. Health helps you survive a little bit more. Obviously, you want the AD. Ability haste, so you can cast your spells more. And obviously, we have the main part of the Black Cleaver, which is the Sunder, which will allow you to shred the armor of the enemy team. This will, of course, help both yourself and your team to deal more damage, especially with her, something like her ult or her Q, which strikes through all enemies, or even her root, which can hit multiple enemies. You can apply this, to multiple enemies at one go. Of course, movement speed also very helpful. Next, we have the Divine Sunderer. Obviously, with this, you have the more ability haste, more attack damage, more health, even so a little bit more tanky, and this gives you the key part of not only the tank shredding, which is of course important, but also the lifesteal. So if you notice, all other Senna builds, you don't have any kind of lifesteal item, and you generally do not go for Gluttonous Greed. So this gives you some very key stats in terms of having some physical vamp. This really helps out in your survivability. Now for the boots, generally I like to go for Ionian Boots of Lucidity. Now this will of course give me more ability haste to cast abilities more often. Of course, you can also opt for defensive boots. And for the boot enchant, it's actually between 3, actually a couple options, more than 3. So first up, the more selfish options are going for Proto Belt for mobility and going for Zhonya's for survivability. But your 2 other options are of course your true support enchants, which is the Locket and the Redemption. Now Locket is generally better than Redemption because firstly, you don't have to aim, which is always a fact. But with Senna, if you combo your Locket with your ultimate, you can have like a half health shield on like all members of your team, which is going to be really, really helpful. Next, you go for the Rapid Fire Cannon. Now this mostly is for the range because Senna's auto attacks when you get to like by around this point are going to begin to hurt. So having just one long range auto attack is going to be really, really helpful. So generally Rapid Fire Cannon is for the range. Of course, the rest of the stats are really useful as well. Then you go into a Last Whisper item. Now most of the time you'll go for Mortal Reminder in order to get the Grievous Wounds, but in games you don't need Grievous Wounds, you can actually just go for Serelda's Grudge instead. Now Serelda's Grudge can proc off your Q and even your W when you hit the initial W before the root actually triggers. So Serelda's Grudge is really helpful for your team to kite or to chase. And lastly, we finish off with the GA, of course, for the Revive. So now I'm going to show you guys some of the other builds. So this is the pure damage ADC build where you go for Mana Immune, and you also go for Edge of Night for safety and more damage. And then next up you have the kind of full support build where it's basically the same as this build, but instead of going for Divine Sunder, you go for Iceborne Gauntlet. This used to be her previous quote-unquote support build. So now, for your last item on your Sunderer build, if you don't want to build GA or if it's down, you can go for, basically, your only real viable option is, aside from more defensive options like Maw of Malmortius, for example, is to go for the Edge of Night, because you obviously cannot go for, it's not advisable to go for another Spellblade item like the Iceborne Gauntlet, for example, and it's also not really good to go for Mana Immune because you don't have time to stack that up. So basically, Edge of Night is pretty much your best bet. And now we're going to talk about the runes. So basically for your rune option, you have two. The first option, which is the one I prefer, is going for Grasp of the Undying. So this will, of course, when you're in combat for a while, which most of the time you will manage to proc this, you will heal for 2% of your max health. And also, do increase your health a bit and do a little bit of extra damage to them. Now, of course, she's ranged, so it does. The effects are diminished by a bit, but she doesn't really have too much better options. Her other option is Fleet Footwork. Now, Fleet Footwork obviously gives you the sustain in lane, but really, generally, just Grasp is more consistent and more better. But Fleet is your other option if you don't like going for Grasp. Now, for your Domination rune, honestly, you don't have too many good options. Now, most people like to take Brutal for some early game damage, but I see Senna as a scaling champion anyway, so I think Brutal isn't really very helpful. Gathering Storm is not very good on AD champions. So basically, your options now fall to Hunter Vampirism, Triumph, and Weakness. Now, Triumph, of course, can be useful when enemies are low on health. Weakness is, of course, useful for if you, root people or if you build Sorella's Grudge, but honestly, I feel that by the time you get, obviously landing your W is not consistent. If you get Sorella's, it's way too late into the match. So I think that the best option here is Hunter Vampirism, personally. Now, for the next Resolve rune, you go for either Hunter Titan, Bone Plating, or Adaptive Carapace, depending on what you prefer. But honestly, I think it's between Hunter Titan and Bone Plating, depending on if you are more worried about CC or Burst. And for the Inspiration rune, I generally go for Mana Flow Bent all the time, because without building like a Mana Immune or like Iceborne Gauntlet kind of items, you run out of mana really fast. So going for a Sunderer build, you run out of mana really fast, so you kind of need the Mana Flow Band to have mana to cast your spells. Without it, you're going to realize you have no mana all the time. So for the spells, as usual, you go for Flash and you go for Exhaust. But for example, if you're playing more supportive, you could also even go for Heal. And of course, Barrier is always an option as well. So with all that out of the way, we can actually move on to talking about the gameplay. Alrighty, so now we're going to move on to the gameplay. So now, as usual, you guys know the drill. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And any questions or remarks, you can put it in the comments below, and I will, of course, be responding to them. Alright, so now, it's kind of a little bit of a spoiler for this game. I'm not going to be getting an S or A or anything, but make no mistake, despite not getting those, so-called ranked achievements that, the game likes to give, I mean, they do mean something, but they don't mean a lot. I've had games where I see people who make horrible plays and they just don't play well, but just because they got good stats, etc., they do get S's and A's, so that's not everything. But anyways, that's not the point here. The point is that basically, even though we don't get any ranking, we still play very well this game. And now we start the game amazingly with RNG giving us three instant souls. Now we're also rocking the Psychic Detective Senna skin, of course the newest WoW Pass skin that we got not too long ago. And I will have to admit at the very beginning, full disclosure, that this is a little bit of a strange game. Now, we have a Shen support, but the Shen support has Smite and Exhaust, and is sort of like gonna be playing like a River Shen kind of thing, where it's kind of memey, where he doesn't really stay in the lane with the Jhin all that much, so it allows us to bully the Jhin a lot. And because of that, we do actually manage to get a lead. But you will see that this is still not the easiest of games. Like, our team is pretty bad. Like, the Olaf, he's gonna be feeding a lot, and he can't smite for his life. Katarina is alright, but kind of always is at the wrong place at the wrong time. And Set, it permanently never leaves his lane. Let's just put it that way. So this is gonna be a pretty tough game. But you will see that this game basically in the later stages of the game is just gonna be if I remember, it's like me and Seraphine for my team versus, like, I think it was like Lee Sin and Yeah, it's like Lee Sin and Ziggs. So basically, it's who can carry harder between me and Seraphine, and versus like Ziggs and Lee Sin, because basically the entire rest of both teams aren't doing well. But so this is a pretty interesting match. You know, sometimes you do have these type of matches where 3 members of a team are feeding and 2 members of a team are doing well, and basically it's just between which 2 members of each of which team are better. Speaking of which, Olaf gets executed by the Gromp, so that tells you everything you need to know about the Olaf. And also, Olaf didn't actually buy any items at the start. Not sure if you guys noticed that at the start. I do put the scoreboard up, you know, so you guys can see these sort of information. So Senna, you know, make no mistake, Senna is a very late game champion. So in the early game, you are useful in, you know, giving heals, giving those roots with the shields, with your ultimate, etc. But your damage doesn't really ramp up until you get to, like, let's say past 15 minutes of a game. Like when you got maybe like 3 items or so. It doesn't really get, you know, too good until you reach that sort of point. So yeah, really in the early stages of the game, you're just trying to get to the later stages and just trying not to die too much, trying to get your team kills, trying to get yourself kills, you know, etc. So here, of course, you know, Shen, we can see him in the bot lane, so we're just bullying the Jhin here. Like, 2 of us are after the Jhin. If Seraphine, somehow missed that, I would have my ult to snipe him as well. So we're doing really well against the Jhin, who, I mean, because he's 2v1 basically, nothing to be really too proud of in this scenario, but yeah, but we are doing well because it's 2v1, so we can basically abuse the Jhin, you know, however we want. Here in comes Lee Sin. I hit my exhaust into Lee Sin as fast as possible so that he does not do too much damage to us. And yeah, so basically the main threat of the game is Lee Sin. So basically you will see that throughout the game I basically only exhaust the Lee Sin. I think maybe I exhaust the Shen once or twice as well because he's engaging in onto us, but basically the easiest exhaust target is the Jhin. Obviously we put the Lee Sin. The Jhin we've put very far behind. Kayle is not going to be doing too well, and Ziggs is way too far away for us to you know, realistically exhaust him consistently. So we're gonna mainly use exhaust on Lee Sin now. Of course, when you're the person holding the exhaust, you have to know who to exhaust and, you know, when to exhaust. Sometimes you don't even need to. Sometimes you need to do it right at the beginning of the fight. Sometimes it's okay to do it, you know, halfway through the fight, kind of deal. Kind of depends. So yeah, so here Kayle has swapped lanes with Jhin. So here I'm just going on the Kayle. Kayle obviously can't, although I don't really do damage, Kayle doesn't really do damage as well. So we're basically just, you know, trading damage, and I do believe I out DPS the Kayle. Now the main mistake I made here is not really waiting for my Seraphine. Now if I waited for Seraphine, likely we can get a free kill there, but I got a little bit over eager to launch my root into the minion to instantly proc it onto the Kayle. So yeah, anyways, regardless, the enemy team takes the dragon. So Olaf is of course dead, and yeah, so in terms of objectives, our team isn't going to be doing too well. As I mentioned, the Olaf is a horrible smiter, and he is also kind of a feeder, so yeah, that's not going too well. So here, now, I really don't get why the enemy team swapped Jhin with Kayle. Now, we have already put Jhin really far behind, so the better move would just be to leave Jhin in the lane and let Kayle scale up. So now we're going to be putting the Kayle far behind because Kayle is now in our lane and we can basically abuse her. Now, you see here, what we're doing here is a key thing that you want to do against the Kayle. Basically, you want to force out her ultimate and force out her flash if you can. So here she already doesn't have her ultimate, so we already know that we can, you know, try to dive her if we want to, something like that. Now we are aware that Lee Sin is in the tri-bush, but we do still want to be aggressive on Kayle. After all, it's going to be a 2v2, and I do have my exhaust up. So Lee Sin comes in, I exhaust him immediately before he even hits his Q onto me, and we do manage to pick up the kill onto Kayle under tower. Now unfortunately, Lee Sin does manage to trade onto the Seraphine. Obviously, exhaust doesn't last forever. It does run out after like about 2 seconds or so. So I can't really quite 1v1 the Lee Sin or even try to kill him together with the help of my Seraphine, because obviously I don't really quite have much damage this early into the game. Now, I have mentioned this in my previous guides before, but if there is no one around to take the farm, you still do want to take the farm for yourself and not just let the minions die to each other and take the souls, because obviously the goal at this point is really important as well. So here, I do manage to actually stay and pick up the first tower, off Lee Sin rotating for the Herald and off the Seraphine dying. I do actually manage to get the entire solo tower goal onto 2 plates as well as the tower itself. So I do manage to pick up quite a huge injection of gold for myself. So here, of course, I can back and then I can pick up some items. I'm 0, 0, and 4 at the moment. I can pick up my boots, my sheen, Black Cleaver, of course, already completed. Set has Black Cleaver as well. Olaf has Black Cleaver as well. So if all of us are attacking like the same couple of people, their armor are all going to be shredded to bits. So we do have 2 AP champions in Seraphine and the Katarina in this game, but all 3 AD champions actually have gone for the Black Cleaver, which is pretty interesting. So here I'm sniping the Ziggs with the root, and boom, we just instantly wombo combo him. I do ult him because I thought we weren't gonna manage to kill him, but we actually do. Seraphine, you know, she's really fat. She's 5 and 1. We did get a lot of kills in lane, so we are able to actually just kill the Ziggs just straight up off my roots. So yeah, that's why Senna is pretty useful. Now here it comes, in comes the Shin. I do exhaust him because Senna is really low. Not the Shin, sorry. I do exhaust the Lee Sin because Senna is really low, so I exhaust him immediately so that he cannot finish off the Seraphine. Not Senna. I don't know why I'm mixing up all these names today, but yeah. So here, again, there's no one around, so I'm just gonna take the farm. Ziggs has come back after his death, and he's gonna be clearing the wave. He's gonna clear the wave pretty fast. I'm just taking the farm, and then I'm pretty okay with just backing off. Now here, I realized I can get the plate, so I do manage to auto attack it twice to get the plate. So another solo plate for me. Of course, we do have to get ourselves some gold. So we're just gonna stick around, I believe, or are we gonna back? And yeah, so we're gonna back now because the Rift Herald, or rather the Dragon, sorry, is gonna spawn really soon. So we're gonna back, get a reset, get ourselves a couple of items, almost fully toward our Divine Sunderer already. So we're gonna go over to the Dragon area. Lee Sin does come in, gets rooted by Senna, gets rooted by me as well, and we do manage to finish off the kill on the Lee Sin. So now, the enemy team has no jungler, so it is a golden opportunity to get the Mountain Dragon, which is going to be very useful for Seraphine as well in terms of casting a W. But I gotta remember that we have the meme Shen, who does actually have a smite of his own. So here I'm just trying to disturb the Shen, trying to get him out of the pit. Unfortunately, he does go into the pit, and obviously he does get the steal because, as I said, our Olaf cannot smite. So here I do get the kill. I get the double of Katarina's effort. Now, sort of a KS, but you know, she was in danger of dying if I don't, you know, quickly get the kill. So either way, we do get you know, a couple of kills. We're 3, 0, and 6 with our Divine Sunderer completed. So we are doing relatively well. Now we have 2 items already. I forgot to actually show the number of souls that we have in this particular game. I forgot to swap over to the not the scoreboard, but you know, the champion details, I guess you could say. Now I can't really do that at the moment because I'm not actually voicing over while recording at the same time. I actually do record the gameplay first, then I do a voiceover on the gameplay footage. I don't do it simultaneously, so unfortunately we cannot see how many souls I have at this point in time, which actually would have been pretty crucial information in terms of explaining my decision making. But either way, we're going to rotate to the mid lane. We're going to take, you know, what farm we can get. We're going to pick up our souls. And yeah, so here the Rift Herald is coming up. But, you know, we know that Olaf is a horrible smiter. At this point, he's 1, 5, and 2. So he's nowhere near strong or like able to contest. So I'm not going to care about it too much. I'm more interested in them getting down the mid tower, which we do manage to actually do. So here we see 2 people coming up from behind us, and unfortunately we're pretty overextended because we think that it was a good opportunity to push. I basically get caught in the middle of everybody. I get exhausted. I try to flash out and I try to kite them out while using my Q. And here, look at this. This is a play of the match. So here, Shen tries to go in. I sidestep, root him under the tower. He's attacking the tower and he just dies. So the most key aspect of this is the fact that if you realize, when I activated my E for the movement speed, I didn't try to kite him and I didn't auto attack. Now what this does is, eventually after a second or two, you basically become untargetable by auto attacks. Now this basically caused the Kale to be unable to attack me. Shen was still on the chase, and eventually when he tried to taunt me under the tower, I sidestepped his taunt and used that opportunity to hit a point blank root. Now this firstly allowed me not to die, because if I get hit by the taunt I die, and secondly it rooted him under the tower while I proceed to take the fruit and survive while he dies to the tower. So that was a really nice play by me there. Honestly, I find it pretty difficult to believe that I didn't just straight up die right there after being caught so badly out of position. But hey, you know, a couple of people went over to focus Seraphine, so they weren't fully concentrating on me, which allowed me to actually escape with my life. Now, in comes the Lee Sin again. He does get the Shen out, so we do have to be cautious that Shen is coming. Seraphine gets taunted under the tower, and yet again we're a little bit overextended. Seraphine out hits onto 2, but this time no escaping because Lee Sin does give me the kick, and I cannot really get out. So Lee Sin does pick up the shutdown. As I said, if you take a look at the scoreboard at the moment, Jin, Kale, and Shen are basically feeding, so it's Lee Sin and Ziggs. And on my team, Olaf is feeding. Set is actually not feeding, but Set just never actually leaves his lane, so he's not very helpful. And Katarina is feeding as well. So basically, it's me and Seraphine versus Lee Sin and Ziggs. Now, I have to say that my team is it advantages in certain ways the fact that we do actually have a semi-fed Set, but the issue is that he isn't really, you know, contributing too much because he's always at his lane. He didn't really join us in any of the objective fights. Now he does actually rotate, and he's mostly mid now, so that is, you know, that's a good thing, of course. But the issue here is also that the enemy team has a goal lead on my team at about 3k or so. So not the biggest goal lead in the world, but they still do have a goal lead, and they also have 2 dragons. Speaking of dragons, the Cloud Dragon has just spawned, which is really important as a dragon for especially champions like Olaf and Set, who need the movement speed from it to get onto their enemies. So we're starting up the Cloud Dragon. I ward over the wall because no one else does it, and we see all the enemies over there. In comes the Shen again, and obviously Olaf doesn't actually manage to get the smite, but thankfully Set does manage to secure it with his Haymaker. Using the true damage on his W. Now obviously we're not going to be winning this fight. I hit a disengaged root onto 3 to allow us to escape. Now Lee Sin gets a little bit over eager, tries to chase us down and gets hit by basically everything we have left from me and the Seraphine, and I do get the shutdown onto the Lee Sin. So sometimes, even though you see some low health bars, not always the best idea to chase, you know, into an entire enemy team. So here I'm building toward my rapid fire cannon. Of course, I do have the two parts of it already, so just need a little bit of that combined goal. Alright, so here, just gonna clear out the mid lane. I do have the double buffs off the kill from the Lee Sin, so that's really helpful. I'm just gonna clear out the mid lane again and take all the mid lane farm. No one else is close by to take the farm, so I'm just gonna do it myself. Now they are collapsing on Jin in the bot lane. So here I'm looking at the fight. I'm thinking, like, you know, they don't need me for the fight. I see Shen coming around, so I'm like, maybe they do need me for the fight. Then I realize, nah, they don't need me for the fight. It's 4v1 against the Jin and 4v1 against the Shen. Like, you know, there's no way we're losing that fight. So here I back and I actually managed to pick up my rapid fire cannon. So as I mentioned earlier in the game, basically you need to be like 15 minutes plus to actually sort of be useful, and 3 items. So basically at this point I'm finally gonna actually start being kind of useful and actually doing you know, not a non-negligible amount of damage. Alright, so here there's nothing too much happening. The only objective on the map to be taken is Baron, but even though the enemy team is doing pretty well, they can't straight up just start the Baron just like that, because, you know, we will be able to, of course, stop them. Now, of course, I am showing in top lane, so you know, that is a consideration. So they could try to start the Baron knowing I'm not around. But here I'm just going to push out the top lane, like so, and just pick up, you know, basically a wave and a half worth of gold. And yeah, just really nothing too much is happening at the moment. So just kind of just, you know, neutral game, just walking around farming waves, you know, etc, etc. Trying to get more souls for myself. Alright, so here we see is Jin and Ziggs and Kale all showing up in the bot lane. So here we make the decision to straight up just go and rush the Baron. So this is sort of the semi mistake that I did just now. Of course, I knowingly did that so-called mistake, which is showing top. But 3 of them have shown top, which basically means it's the opposite side of the map. So it means that we can try to actually go for the Baron. Now the issue is that we know that we know that Olaf is a horrible smiter. So I see Shen come in and instantly we're going to focus the Shen because we don't want it to be a 50-50, because we all know who's going to win that one. Thankfully, we managed to get rid of the Shen a split second before the Baron goes down, and we do actually manage to secure the Baron. Now, if we lost Baron to the enemy team at this point, that would be tragic. And, you know, off the back of Olaf's horrible smites, of course, But anyway, Olaf finally does something right. Finally manages to actually smite the Baron down. And we do actually have the Baron secured. Elder Dragon is of course going to be up in a while. But we're going to try to take advantage of this time to attempt to push in. So Jin launches his ult, not too sure what he was thinking of there. Gets rooted by Seraphine, and you know he just dies. So here I'm just gonna go after the Ziggs. I'm doing some damage to him now, not the most, but some damage. Here I exhaust the Lee Sin again. We all know Lee Sin and Ziggs are the two most threatening champions on the enemy team. Katarina actually manages to finish off the kill onto the Lee Sin, and we do have a wave coming in, allowing us to get the tower, and we're gonna try to push for the inhib as well. Fortunately, our minions get stuck just slightly outside of the tower's range, so we gotta push in another wave. And here, yeah, as you can see, we got double cannon minions that's gonna help us to push down the inhib. And Elder Dragon has spawned at this point in time, so we're just going to back off. They're gonna have to deal with the super minions coming in to their bot lane, and here we're also gonna take the mid lane tier 2 off the drive-by. So here I'm just checking if they have any vision in the Dragon Pit. They have no vision in the Dragon Pit, so they have no idea how much health the dragon has. So I have just popping the Blast Plant to ensure that they don't come over the wall. And we do actually manage to secure the Elder Dragon. So we did actually get the two important dragons, which is the Cloud Dragon and the Elder Infernal Dragon. So that's really important. We do also have the Baron buff. So at this point in time, our team is in an amazing spot. So here, I'm just going to pick up the red buff, because honestly, there's no better person to have the red buff. Olaf is feeding, of course. And yeah, the rest of my team is AP aside from Set. So I'm just going to pick up the red buff. Alright, so here what we want to do is we want to push down top and mid and get the remaining inhibitor towers and try to threaten the end. Now what happens here is a fight breaks out. I'm gonna ult over to give my team the shield, as well as do a little bit of damage to the enemy team. Here me and Seraphine are making our way up top. Very nice ult by Seraphine, gets 2. And Lee Sin is the last man standing on the enemy team. He does have a GA, but it doesn't really matter. He's 1v5 at this point in time. I'm flashing forward to follow him, get myself the kill, and pretty much the game is won at this point. We have 30+ second death timers on the entire enemy team, and we do have a wave in top. Baron has run out, but it's inconsequential at this point in time. We can just push using the wave in top, and this will allow us to end the game. Alright, so there we have it, the end of the game. So thank you guys so much for watching the video. I'll leave you guys with the stats as usual, and bye.